DACA update because a lot of people from our community also have DACA. We're also going to have a TPS update, that as well as it pertains to the group within our community that have TPS. We're going to give them an update on that. The second thing that we're going to be talking about is taking action. So we're going to talk about what you can do to learn about some remedies for yourself. We're going to talk about the immigration law intake service, which helps you out with that. And then the third thing that we're going to be talking about is resources here at Immigrants Rising. So we're going to be talking about some legislation that's in action right now. And we're also going to talk about the overview of resources that we have here at Immigrants Rising and how you can access them.
Great. Okay, so to kick us off is an update on public charge. So public charge has been recently in the press a lot. It has been actually a federal immigration policy that has been in place for more than 100 years. And the Trump administration is currently trying to change it up. So what they are doing, actually before we talk about the proposed changes, let me give you guys a little bit of a background of what public charge is. So public charge is, like I said, a federal immigration law that was in place as a test, essentially. So it applies in two different situations. The first one would be when you want to change your status to an LPR, legal permanent resident. So the layaway term would be getting a green card. And then the second situation would be if you are outside of the US and you are trying to come into the US using consular processing. So the test essentially is a basic question of, if you are allowed to do either of those things, will you become primarily dependent on the government for your source of income, source of living, etc.? The current changes that the Trump administration wants to do is kind of broaden the scope of the public charge analysis. So they are trying to increase the benefits that are being taken into consideration when we're analyzing who is a public charge, and also in changing the rules, trying to penalize the low-income immigrants and try to prioritize the higher-income immigrants. And we'll be talking a little bit more about what I mean by that. So let's shift our focus down a little bit and talk about how this impacts immigrants generally. Under the current policy, there are two things that are primarily considered when talking about public charge. The first one would be cash assistance, such as supplemental security income and temporary assistance for needy families. And the second one would be government-funded, institutionalized long-term care. So that's a subset that is happening. That is the policy right now. Now the proposed changes.
I was just wondering. I wasn't in it before.
Increase the benefits that are being considered. So these include non-emergency Medicaid, supplemental nutrition assistance program (SNAP), which is food assistance, low-income subsidy for prescription drug costs under Medicare Part D, and housing assistance such as Section 8 housing vouchers. So I understand that the majority of the undocumented population might not have access to these benefits because these require some sort of legal status. But I also want to talk about how the changes to the public charge impacts the undocumented immigrants specifically. So in this new test, it's a totality of circumstances test, and some of the factors that are being considered is going to be earning less than 125% of the poverty level, not having a high credit score, living in a household with many people, being not fluent in speaking English, not having a high school degree, and having a medical condition, whether that be physical or mental. So these are things that the undocumented population could be flagged for when they are trying to become an LPR or trying to use consular processing, if that applies. I also want to flag that when it comes to changing or becoming a green card holder, this is a process that's eligible and available for the undocumented population. And what I mean by that is studies show that 60% of individuals that are adjusting their status and becoming an LPR do so by family-based immigration. So a big example of that would be by marriage. So if you marry a US citizen spouse, then you can have yourself petitioned in most cases to become an LPR. So if you as an undocumented individual are trying to do that, but the new public charge test comes in and says, wait a minute, you're making X amount of money, you're below federal poverty level, or you have a previous medical condition, or you don't really speak English, you didn't get a high school degree, blah, blah, blah. those things can ultimately weigh and be a negative bar that stops you from becoming an LPR. So this is a serious change that will impact the immigrant population, including the undocumented individuals. So the last thing that I want to flag, that now what, right? So now that we have this public charge test, what should we do? Your voice matters. So right now there's a 60-day period that is going on starting from October 10th, where the Trump administration is actively soliciting public comments. So we highly encourage you to follow the link. We'll be providing this in the slides that we give out after the presentation, to protectingimmigrantfamilies.org. And they have a nice little comment microsite that you can use. There's instructions, there's a template. You can submit your comment. That goes to the federal registrar. And according to federal rule, the Trump administration has to consider all unique comments. And the point of doing that is kind of twofold. First of all, we want to build up a record. So in the future, if we want to do have a litigation, we want to point to these comments and say, look, these were the things that we flagged out that would be a problem and is currently a problem, which is the reason why we're suing. The second thing we want to do is also to delay the process, because the public charge changes are not retroactive. Currently, if you're taking any of the benefits that I flagged above, you're okay. As long as you stop before the public charge implementation becomes formal, you should be good. So we want to lengthen this process as long as possible. Great, thanks. And then next is going to be DACA. So actually, we just got a good question, so I want to take a second and address this. Someone asked what retroactive means. So it means that from now until the actual time of the formal implementation of the public charge, everything before the formal implementation is past. It's retroactive, and that doesn't matter. In this timeline, you can go ahead and continue to take advantage of the much needed benefits that you are taking advantage. We have a question from Karina Duarte. I think we're gonna have her come.
She's unmuted.
Okay, great. I think she's muted on this.
There.
Hi, Karina. Hello? Okay. If you have any questions, Karina, feel free to submit it and we'll be getting back to you.
Or submit it on the chat box.
Yeah, submit it on the chat box as well. Great. Okay, then in the interest of time, let's go ahead and move to the next slide, which is DACA.
No.
Okay,
There you go. There you go. All right, so I'll be talking about DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. We're going to give a quick overview of what is DACA, what's the current state of DACA, and the litigation around it, and what's the likely future of DACA. So to begin with the history of DACA, DACA is known as Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, and it's an executive order that was issued in June 15, 2012 by President Obama as an administrative relief option from deportation. The purpose of DACA is to protect eligible immigrant youth who came into the United States when they were children from deportation. DACA gives you two things. The first thing, it gives you temporary prosecutorial discretion to not be deported. And then the second thing is also a work permit, which many of us use to be able to obtain legal work here. And now, current state of DACA and the litigation around it. The Trump administration decided to end DACA last year on September 5th, 2017. And since then, many lawsuits have been filed by many U.S. district courts challenging that decision. And that has allowed the continuing of renewal applications for DACA recipients. But keep in mind that first-time applications are not being accepted, only renewals at this time. So, just keep that as in mind if you're a person that's looking to apply for first time. As of now, we're unable, USCIS is not unable to take in first-time applications. But the most recent case that there was a decision on was a case in Texas, which was being heard by Judge Haynen. Judge Haynen is also known as the judge that stopped the enacted executive order that Obama wanted to implement called DAPA, which was going to benefit the parents. So from then, then it was, a lot of people had a lot of mixed feelings. They thought that Judge Haynen was going to rule against DACA, but fortunately he did not. So he allowed the continuation of DACA. but no first-time renewals. So now you may be thinking, oh, so now DACA is in the limbo once again. We don't know what's going to happen with it. But there are many scenarios that can develop in many different time frames. So one of the scenarios that we see likely happening is that DACA will end up being heard in the Supreme Court of the United States. And you can see that there may be some implications with that now that Judge Kavanaugh, has been accepted into the Supreme Court, and he has held, opposed views against DACA for a long time. So we see a lot of implications with that. So many organizations have encouraged DACA recipients to renew before that time comes, just to make sure that they are able to have their DACA valid throughout this time. So we just want to give you, and we just want to let you know to please stay updated and remember to get your information from reliable sources. So yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the next thing we have is TPS.
Yes. Okay. So now an update on TPS. So many of you may have heard about the injunction that happened 2 weeks ago, but first we're going to talk about what TPS is. So temporary protected status, we call it TPS, is a temporary immigration status in the United States, and it's granted to individuals that come from countries that are designated by the Attorney General that are currently in a state that are unsafe because of either armed conflict or natural disasters. So it's meant to be a limited period of time. For an individual to be eligible for TPS, they must have been in the United States the day that the event happened, or the day that the Attorney General announced the designation of TPS for that country. So people who flee the country after the event has happened, unfortunately would not be protected by TPS. And so the benefits of TPS are very similar to DACA. It is temporary relief from deportation. It does not have a pathway to citizenship. An individual that is a TPS recipient would have to qualify individually for it and meet other adjustment of status criteria similar to DACA recipients. And second, TPS recipients are able to work legally in the United States because they're able to obtain a work authorization card. So before the injunction that was filed on October 3rd, before that, the Trump administration had announced the termination of TPS for TPS countries. But what happened was on October 3rd, about 2 weeks ago, in the Ramos versus Nielsen case, the court filed a preliminary injunction to stop the Department of Homeland Security from implementing and enforcing the decision to terminate temporary protected status. And this includes Sudan, Haiti, El Salvador, and Nicaragua. And this injunction was filed on the basis that if TPS was terminated until this further litigation was to happen, that it would cause irreparable harm to TPS recipients, whereas if the government allowed TPS recipients to remain in the country until further litigation happened, it would not cause the government irreparable harm. So it was on that basis that the preliminary injunction was filed. Now it's important to note that there are 2 countries that were not included in this preliminary injunction, and that includes Nepal and Honduras. It is likely that a similar injunction will be filed to include these 2 countries in that injunction, but for now that is not the case. And there is a hearing set for October 26th for the Ramos versus Nielsen lawsuit.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so next is Ellis.
Okay. So, we just talked about these 2 very important programs that have definitely benefited so many individuals in the undocumented community. And now they're both pending litigation and trying to survive the court. So a common question you may be asking yourself is what can you do? What can I do about my situation? And so I just want to remind you all that knowledge can be very powerful, right? It can be empowering to know what is your situation. So we want to tell you about a service that Immigrants Rising offers. So we're going to talk about the Immigration Law Intake Service, which we call ILLIS because it has a really long name. So what is ILLIS? ILLIS is an online legal screening that helps undocumented people learn about potential immigration options and their rights, as well as other resources that can help them succeed. So who can use ILLIS? ILLIS is a service that anyone who is undocumented can use. You do not have to be a DACA recipient or a TPS recipient to benefit from this service. Anyone who is undocumented that has not yet obtained legal permanent residency or citizenship can benefit from this service. So important thing about the immigration legal intake service is that number one is that it's free. So that you don't need to spend any money to use and benefit from this service. Number two is that it is completely anonymous. So that means that in the survey, we ask you several questions, and one of them includes your name, but you do not have to actually use your real name. So you can submit the survey under the name SpongeBob. And as long as all the other information that we ask you, as long as that is accurate, you will be able to receive that legal information.
I think we did get a SpongeBob.
Yeah, we get several SpongeBobs, and that's okay. You'll just get a legal memo addressed to SpongeBob, so that's fine. Number three is that it is completely confidential. So even if you do feel comfortable using your real name, and many folks do, nobody has access to your information outside of the legal services team and folks that are directly working on your case. And last is that the information that you will receive is personalized to the responses that you answered. And the really unique thing about this legal memo is that you receive the information very, again, personalized to your situation, but it is also it is written in a way that is educational. So we don't just tell you this is what you qualify for, this is what you can do. In the memo we try to explain why we say that, why we have flagged that as a potential remedy for you. And again, we include other information. So we also ask you, for example, things about what are your educational or career goals, and we include information that may help you in that. Such as leadership opportunities and also policies and local laws that are relevant to you. So we have folks using the survey that are not necessarily in California. So the resources for undocumented people in different states can look differently. So we try to cater it to you as much as possible. Okay, and then now the next thing is, how does ILLIS work? Okay, so what can you expect? You go to immigrantsrising.org, you go to the services tab, and you click on the ILLIS service. Now, what can you expect? So you open it up. It's a 10 to 30 minute survey, depending on how much information you provide. Everybody's situation is different, so it may take a little bit longer if you have more information to add, but it takes about 10 to 30 minutes in general. And you'll be asked several questions. So some of them will be regarding your immigration background, such as where you were born. They're very important dates that can be factors for potential remedies. So such as, when did you enter the US? So those will be some questions, right? Another one will be if there's been any immigration application, if anyone has filed an immigration petition for you. Also, the date of that can be very important. There's also a section where you're able to ask questions, where you can ask specific questions that you may have to our legal services team. And in the memo, we'll address those. And then the questionnaire will also ask several other questions that are relevant to for us to best assess your situation. So we just got a question: is ILLIS available in Spanish? Unfortunately, we do not have the questionnaire available in Spanish. However, many folks, what they do is that they have somebody help them out to fill it out. So, for example, if I wanted my mom to be screened for any legal remedies and she doesn't speak English, then I can sit down with her and go through with her and submit it on her behalf. And we have a comment section where you're able to let us know, hey, I'm submitting this on behalf of somebody else that doesn't speak English. So that is one way to still benefit from it.
Just to add to that, we also do follow-up calls, and if you would like and you're a Spanish speaker, we can also have an individual that's a Spanish speaker follow up with you. It's okay.
Okay, so next is what happens next. So you've submitted the memo, you've submitted the questionnaire online. What happens next? So once you submit it, it takes 2 to 4 weeks to get the final product back. So what happens on our end is that we receive it. Someone from our legal staff will assign it to a legal advocate fellow that is working on your case, and they will work with the legal services team and a staff attorney to create this memo for you. So what you get is a personalized legal memo. In that memo, in this document that you receive, it'll include a personalized summary. So everything that you told us, we're going to essentially repeat it back to you to make sure that we've understood accurately everything that you've told us, to make sure there's no misunderstanding. We'll also point out any areas that we weren't sure what you meant, and try to clarify that as much as possible. Sometimes we ask for additional information. So we'll include that in your summary. You'll also, if you qualify for any immediate immigration remedies, then we'll include that. And by immediate, we mean any remedy that you may qualify for that takes 1 to 5 years to have some sort of status, then that will be considered immediate. Some people, we include future immigration remedies. So this may mean remedies that will take longer than 5 years. There may be remedies, but it can take 10 years or more, such as family-based petitions. Some of those take a longer time, but it is a remedy that you can qualify for. So we try to let you know the time frame of those potential options. Some people, unfortunately, we do not find anything, but it is still really empowering to know at least that you tried, and that there may not be anything currently right now, but that doesn't mean that you still don't benefit from this memo, because in the memo, regardless if you're eligible for a remedy or not, we include educational resources. I think I talked about a little bit that before. So again, we'll include know your rights information. We'll include educational and legal policies that are relevant to you and the state that you're in. And we'll also provide leadership opportunities and programs that you may be interested in. For example, we have an entrepreneurship program, a pre-med program, and also the legal fellows program for people interested in pre-law. So we try to share all that information with you. And then last is that, so the point of what is the point, right, of this legal memo is that once you have this, it's like, what do you do with it? You read it, and it's very helpful. Again, it's written in a way where it's very, it's educational for you to understand, right, like where you fall between these complex immigration laws. But what we encourage folks to do after, especially when we flag them for an immigration remedy, is to go find a lawyer or a Department of Justice accredited representative to further help them with this case. So one thing to emphasize is that this legal memo, it is providing legal information, but it is not legal advice. So what we do is that we connect you to nonprofit and free legal services, as well as services that are at a low cost, for you to continue seeing through these remedies that we have flagged for you. So that, okay, can I go to the next slide? Oh, I think we have a question. Did I get screened? Yes, I did get screened. How was it like for me? Okay, so, and maybe Sam and William can speak to this too, because I think we've all done the legal screening. So that was something that we were encouraged to do when we started, when we became fellows with Immigrants Rising, was to benefit from this service that we were also providing, right? So when I took it, I'm currently not a DACA recipient, so I was definitely curious to see what options were available for me. Unfortunately, I didn't qualify. The memo said that I didn't qualify for anything other than potentially a future option, which was also helpful to know, and it kind of gave me peace of mind to know where I was at instead of just wondering. And then, I don't know, do you want to talk about your experience?
I mean, for me, they pointed out some key things that I had to pay attention to, such as unlawful presence. That was one of the key things that they told me to take a look at, was because I had 4 months, I think, of unlawful presence. And if you have more than 6 months, that could create a 3-year bar, which means that you have to do consular process and have to stay 3 years outside of the United States. So that was one of the key things for me, because I think I wasn't knowledgeable about that. So it also educates you. It also gave me a potential option with my future wife, hopefully, my boo. I love her. I love her so much. Shout out to her. She's working right now as well. So it gave me my remedies as well, and gave me a lot of information also about the legal fellowship. I mean, I was already a part of it, but I think they didn't know that I was already a part of it. That's where the anonymous thing comes in. You know, they don't know who you are, but they're doing this like tailored to the information that you're giving them. So they answer every question that you put out there, and every single thing, every detail that you mark, they'll answer that and give you the right information for sure.
Right.
Okay, and then we also got another question. Who are the people behind the services? Okay, I'm so glad you asked that. So two of us, actually, few of us, or all of us are actually, there's some people missing, but the people you see here, we're part of the legal services team. So we're the people, you know, on the back end working on your legal memo and really hoping to help you as much as possible, and who understand your situation and who, again, went through the process ourselves. So that is us, and hopefully you feel comfortable knowing it's a group of people that are dedicated to helping you find options. And the legal services team and Immigrants Rising is also dedicated to training us and providing us support with legal professionals to give you accurate information. I think we have one more coming in. What's the fellowship?
So I'm actually in the fellowship at Immigrants Rising.
The question go first.
All right. So the question that they had, what fellowship was William referring to? William being me. So the fellowship that I'm a part of, it's the legal fellowship here at Immigrants Rising. So we're the ones that provide the legal services, like the immigration legal intake service. So we're the ones that work within that field. But there's also other fellowships here at Immigrants Rising, like entrepreneurship, community engagement, college access team. So there are many more, but I'm part of the legal fellowship.
Right, and so for folks that are interested in this particular fellowship and doing some of the work that we're doing, oh yeah, next question was, when does it become available? Yes, okay, yeah, so anyone that is particularly interested in pre-law, or it doesn't have to be, but is interested in becoming more educated on immigration law, you would definitely benefit from this program. And it becomes available, I believe, in the spring. Yeah, so applications open in the spring, and then the fellowship actually begins over the summer. So we began over the summer, and it's like a year-long fellowship. So you can find out all these leadership opportunities on immigrantsrising.org. So you can visit the website for that, and it'll let you know when applications open.
And it's not only limited to people here in the Bay Area. For the entrepreneurship fellowship, there's also fellows from different states. We have at our retreat, we have people from New York, people from Florida, people from Texas. So, you know, if you're into entrepreneurship and would like to get more into that, but you're in a different state, you know, or are going to move to a different state, you know, this is also a great opportunity. So look into that.
Cool. Okay. So last thing about the ILLIS, if those of you are not yet so sure whether you want to use the service or not. So why should you use it? So a political science professor from UC San Diego, he did a study and he found that 15 to 20% of people who use some sort of immigration relief questionnaire similar to ILLIS to find remedies, 15 to 20% of them, do find immigration relief. And actually the ILLIS intake service actually has a bit of a higher rate of success for that. So now we want to share with you actually one of our own. He was part of Immigrants Rising when it was formerly known as E4FC. He was actually part of the process of creating it. Back then it was called the Dreamer Intake Service. And in the process of creating the service and learning about all these immigration remedies that were being prepared, he realized that he was eligible for one of the remedies. I believe he was eligible for special immigrant juvenile status. And so he went and looked into it, and thanks to the service, he actually became a legal permanent resident and is now a practicing lawyer, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
He works at ILRC, so it's really cool.
Right, yeah. And then so one thing I want to say is that the remedy that he qualified for was he could have aged out of. So that's something that's important to remember. Some of these remedies are time sensitive. They're based on your age and you can potentially age out of them, or it can be a difference between waiting an additional several years to be able to actually obtain some sort of status. So take it as soon as you can, because you never know, right? You never know. You might actually be able to qualify for something and still be in the necessary age to qualify and benefit from it. And I think we have another question. Oh, okay. So we're actually going to address questions at the end, but that's basically what we wanted to share with you about the ILLA service. We hope you take advantage of it. Again, you go to immigrantsrising.org and yeah, hopefully you guys use it.
All right, I think the next one we have coming up is Know Your Rights. So we wanted to give you guys a little bit of an overview of some rights that all of us in the undocumented community have. So the first one is talking about FERPA. FERPA is a general federal legislation that we should be aware of. And it's, in essence, what it does is it ensures confidentiality in schools. So FERPA is the Federal Educational Rights and Privacy Act, and it forbids schools from disclosing most confidential student information to non-student persons, including government agents. So an ICE official cannot just come to school and be like, hey, I want to see the school records of Samuel Park. Can I have it right now? And FERPA says, no, you cannot, so which is great. Like I said, FERPA seeks to protect all educational records, but I did want to flag that there are two categories of information that are exempt. The first one would be official requests for information that come in the form of court orders, such as grand jury requests, judicially issued warrants and subpoenas. And the second one would be directory information. So directory information is information relevant to immigration status, such as where do you live, like what's your name. But the good thing to note is that directory information is kind of up to the discretionary of the school. For example, a school can say, we have the practice of not labeling anything as directory information. But that might be a little bit difficult to do because directory information might be something that they want to publish and make available to the public. A great example of that would be in the yearbook if they wanted to list student activities, awards, and they wanted to say Samuel Park got an award for attending school, I don't know. And then they had that in the yearbook and it's published. That's directory information. So unfortunately, the school can't just be like, well, we're going to publish it here, but we're not going to give it to you. All right. So the next thing I think we have is, yes, the sanctuary bill.
So I'll be talking about the sanctuary bill, SB 54. So you may be asking yourself, so I heard California became a sanctuary state. So that means all the counties within California are actually sanctuary cities. So we're going to be addressing that. We're going to give a little bit of overview of what SB 54, actually is. So SB 54 prohibits local and state law enforcement authorities to cooperate with ICE agencies that are focused in detaining people. They are prohibited from investigating or arresting people for federal immigration purposes. One of the things that prohibits them as well from doing is stopping you and asking you, oh, what's your status? So that's one of the cool things about this law. But also one of the implications that we see is that some counties that are conservative, their local law enforcement has decided to not abide by this law. So they are still somewhat cooperating with ICE. And you may be asking yourself, how can I be more safe within my campus? How can I create a policy within my campus that will ensure safety here on campus? So we have two possible scenarios. So you have the scenario that your city or county has created a sanctuary city law, for example. So this is good. This is particularly good in that case because it allows you to have local law as your support to create a policy within your campus. You may be asking yourself, oh, they already have a law within my city or county. Why do I need one on campus? Well, for example, ICE gets to your campus. The first people that are gonna come in contact with ICE will be the staff at school. It's not gonna be any other government official or other staff. So it's very important for the school to know what's the procedures if ICE were to come to school. So you could use the local law to help you create a policy within your campus and push for that. And then the second scenario is, what if your city or county does not have a sanctuary city law? Maybe they have drafted one that's anti-sanctuary city. So this could cause a couple of implications, but because many of the schools do receive federal funding from the United States government. So if they draft, let's say, a policy that actually says, oh, we're going to be a sanctuary school, they could lose funding. So one of the ways that some schools are doing it is that they're drafting policies that has a very vague language that allows, that basically says, you know, we are a sanctuary school, but doesn't like say it in its words, you know, but it says it in its overall language, you know, we're not going to cooperate with ICE and things like that. And for example, we tried that as well in Chico State when I was going there. Many student organizations got together and drafted a policy that didn't have the language, oh, as, you know, that we're a sanctuary school, but had a more vague language. So you can do that. And if the law is unconstitutional within your city or county that actually is like going against sanctuary cities, then you may challenge, you could create a policy and you may challenge that law and then be engaged in a lawsuit in order to challenge that law. But you really have to think about it if you're willing to go down the whole litigation process to challenge that law. So those are two possible scenarios that could occur from SB 54 and how you could create your own policy on campus as well.
Great. The next thing we want to talk to you guys about was interaction with the ICE/police. So we wanted to give you guys a bit of a general okay, great. Excuse us about that. We had a little bit of a technical difficulty. So we want to give you a general overview about the rights that we all have. The first thing to do would be to talk about your right to remain silent under the Fifth Amendment. So let's say that you are you come into interaction with ICE or the police. You have the right to say, you know, I don't want to say anything. I want to remain silent. And we actually, the general advice out there encourages us not to answer any questions, state that you have the Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, and don't say especially anything about where you were born, how you entered the country, because any and all information provided to the police can be and will be used against you. So the second thing we want to talk to you guys about was the Know Your Rights card, and I think our tech support will be dropping the card momentarily in the chat box. And essentially what this card does is it explains that you, the individual interacting with ICE or police, will want to remain silent and will not be sharing the information. And the information, the card that we're dropping to you guys right now essentially states that, and you can hand this to the immigration officer, and the immigration officer can read and understand, hey, this person, this individual is choosing to remain silent and exercising their Fifth Amendment right. Additionally, this card is something that you guys can request for free. If requested, they will send you as many cards as you would like, so we highly encourage you to take advantage of it, have it, share it with your friends, your community, so everybody can understand and exercise their basic rights. The third prong we want to touch upon was if you are interacting with ICE and ICE, let's say that ICE or police comes to your door, we encourage you not to open your door. ICE must have a warrant signed by the judge, and it must have your name and the correct address to it. So if an ICE officer comes to your door and demands to be let in, you can say, excuse me, do you have a warrant? And if the ICE says they do not have a warrant, and it's most likely the situation that they do not, then you have the right to refuse them from entry from your house. And if they do say that they have a warrant, ask them to hold it up against the window or slide it under the door or something so you can verify that it has the correct information necessary to be a complete and valid warrant. You have the right to speak to a lawyer. So if you are interacting with police/ICE, you can always say, hey, I want to speak to my lawyer first. You have So when the ICE or police official is giving you guys questions, you're under questioning, you have the right to have your lawyer present during the procedure, and it is highly encouraged to do so. The next thing that I want to talk to you guys would be to, if you have any valid immigration documentation, to have it with you. So for those of us that have DACA, if you have work authorization, it's encouraged that you can carry that with you to show as proof of ID of who you are. And a bit of a subsidized tip for a portion of our population would be that if you are worried that ICE might arrest you and you fall into the subset of the community that is a parent or primary caregiver of a US citizen or permanent resident under the age of 18, you can disclose that information, and ICE has the power to exercise discretion and choose not to arrest you. So now that we've talked about a little bit of the basic rights, we wanted to share a little bit of what you guys can do next to kind of create proactive steps in case you are interacting with ICE or the police. So the first thing would be to create a safety plan. So have a discussion with your family members, your friends, designate an attorney that you would call in a situation like this. Let them know this is the best phone number to reach. If you are a caregiver, make sure in an instance where you are arrested by ICE to have the next plan of action as to who would be taking care of your children, etc. Always keep important identifying documents available with you or readily available for you to utilize in an instance when you are interacting with the ICE or the police. And also you can, if your loved one is arrested or interacted with ICE or detained with ICE, you can call the local ICE office or use the detainee locator, which is all available online, to see where the individual is. Two additional things we want to share is that if you are in the presence of seeing someone getting detained by ICE or you see a raid happening, we highly encourage you to videotape and share that information available to your friends, to your community, and even online. There are several instances where individuals have filmed other people, other undocumented individuals getting detained, and that video goes viral. So with the societal pressure, ICE is either choosing to exercise discretion and not detain them longer. So there are positive outcomes that could come from community action like this. And then the last thing we want to encourage you is that if you are in a situation like this, don't lose hope. Make sure to utilize your legal sources. So get in contact with an attorney. There are plenty of organizations that will refer you to free/low-cost attorneys that specialize in cases like this. So make sure you have the right and proper legal help with you. Great. Okay. How do we request cards? So you can order the question we just received. You can order the red cards in bulk, so 250 plus yourself at www.redcardorders.com, or you could even print them out. I think they're printer friendly. So
also, if you take the illness in your legal memo, we include Know Your Rights information and links to hotlines and immigration defense toolkits, as well as we actually put an actual card in the memo, which you can print.
Great. So we just got a question that says, can you explain more about having children under 18? Does this mean if I have children or may parents have children, or my parents have children, ICE can release us if they want. So if you, let's say that you as the primary caretaker, so you're the parent of a US citizen or a permanent resident child under 18, yes, we encourage you to share the information because ICE can exercise discretion and choose not to arrest you. But once again, this is a discretionary thing, so ICE has the power to be like, okay, you can go, or ICE can still choose to detain you regardless of the shared information.
I have a question, Sam.
Yes.
What if the children are also undocumented? Does that change anything?
It does, and we encourage you not to share this information. Remember, this is only relevant if your child is a US citizen or a legal permanent resident. But that's a good question, thank you. Okay, then the next thing that we have would be the overview of resources at Immigrants Rising by William.
All right, so I'll be going over the resources that we have here at Immigrants Rising. I mean, we have an arsenal, resources. I mean, these could be used as weapons, to protect you from the evils of the world, as we shall say. So one of the cool things that Immigrants Rising offers is a wide variety of different guides that you are able to use on different topics such as immigration policy, college access, higher education, community engagement, maybe you're an ally looking for information. So we have all these things right there at the point of your fingertips, a couple clicks away from, sprinting them out and having them with you at all times. But for our topic of immigration policy, I'll be talking about specifically the Getting Legal Help Guide, which is actually right here. I have printed out, so you can print this out as well.
Should we do the pathway? Sure.
They're gonna pull it up right now on there so you can see it as well. And this guide gives you a lot of information. It compares how you can obtain services from non-profit legal services agencies, also known as nonprofit organizations, and also private immigration attorneys. For example, nonprofit agencies, they sometimes have a little complications because they do have a wide client base. So they sometimes have to dedicate their time to specific cases and can't take all cases at times, or they also have limited resources, which this means that they put certain requirements for the person to take, for their case to be taken, such as income, family size, things like that. And then in regards to private immigration attorneys, I mean, they do cost more because they are private. They do dedicate more time to your case. But one of the big things that our legal intake memo offers is it can offer you to save a little bit of money because you don't have to discuss all the details with the immigration attorney. You actually have a lot of information right there that you can give them, so they don't have to be asking you all the questions and charge you for that time. So that's one of the cool things that private immigration attorneys can do. Yeah, so they may be able more specialized on your case, on your specific case. They may have more experience on that. You can search up somebody that has done work with the immigration remedy that you're seeking to obtain. And then the document also includes 5 tips to obtaining good or nonprofit immigration services. The first one will be get references from people that you know. So maybe you have some cousins, friends, or other family members that have obtained legal help from other immigration attorneys. You might ask them, how did it go with them? What was the specific case that they dealt with? Can I get their number? But if you're unable to do that, then you go to the tip number 2. So you search in the American Immigration Lawyers Association website for a competent immigration attorney there. And then from there, you could draft your list of possible immigration attorneys that you like. And then you may interview them. You may ask them questions as, do you have experience in this specific case like mine? How long have you been practicing immigration law? So, these are questions that you want to clear out so you can know that you're getting the best possible services out there. And then from there, you create, you compare fees between the lawyers. And that's one of the big things right there. Money. A lot of the time, that's what prevents a lot of us from obtaining legal help from attorneys, because we don't have the money. So you want to compare the fees, want to see what's in your budget. If this person is actually, has persuaded, has given you the right information for you to accept that attorney, for that attorney to represent you. So you want to get those questions cleared out, because this is an investment as you think about it. It's an investment in your future. So you want to get the right legal information from the person and get the right legal help. So do that. And then the last step would be to authenticate the attorney that's helping you. So you got to make sure that they are licensed by the American Bar Association. So you have to make sure you can search that up online at the American Bar Association website and check if they're currently licensed and if they're able to practice law at the time. So that will be the last step. Another important resource that we have in regards to immigration policy is a comparison of benefits and rights based on immigration status here in California. This list is only for California. It's not for all the other states, but it's very, very diverse in the benefits that it describes. It goes anywhere from educational, financial aid, to public benefits like food stamps, to work-related benefits like workers' compensation, and how different statuses do, if they qualify or not for them. So it's pretty, as you can see, it's pretty informational. It can clarify a lot of things, very well organized in the different subsections. So take a look at that. If you ever have questions of any benefits that you may qualify for, if you need benefits, and then you might be asking yourself, do I qualify for them? This is a quick reference guide that you could check, and then do your other research for you to obtain those benefits, because we do need them. So you may be asking yourself, how do I get these resources? How do I get these printable guides at my hands? So first, what you will be doing is going to immigrantsrising.org, as you see it up here. And then from there, you'll be going to resources. And was really cool. Like right here, you could choose which category to search for. So maybe, you know, what type of audience are you? Are you an ally? Are you an educator? Let's say you're a teacher, maybe want to search up some things for your student. Are you the undocumented youth? Do you want to learn more about your situation? What's possible? What can you do? Any questions that you may have, and then you have like the topics here. And then for our topic of immigration policy, let me click on that. So you just click on that, and then it automatically shows up all the related articles to that. So let's say you want to know more about how to get legal help. So you click on getting legal help. Then you just click the download button right here, and voila, you have that at your hands in no time. So that's one of the cool things that Immigrants Rising has, and it has many more. Don't just think about the immigration policy part, but it has more if you have any other types of questions on how to get college access, entrepreneurship. It has more than just guides. Has webinars, all types of things. So, you know, please take a look at that. So yeah, use our resources. They're great.
Thank you. Okay, I think that brings us to the end. But before we take questions, I just wanted to include something real fast. That this webinar is part of the CCC Undocumented Student Week of Action webinar series hosted by Immigrants Rising. The week is a collaboration of the CCC Chancellor's Office, the Community College League, Immigrant Rising, and others. And this is day 2. So we just had a legal webinar, but there are 3 more days of awesome webinars and different events planned for you guys. So make sure to please stay in tune and keep along with us. Now that we have kind of concluded our presentation, we want to save some time for questions. And I think we have questions lined up, but if there are other questions you have, please submit them now. We'll try to get to as much as we can before our end time at 12. But if we don't get to your question, then make sure to leave a contact information as well so we can personally address them for you. All right. So the first question is, if I have Medi-Cal, should I stop using it once the public charge is put into place? If I have DACA/undocumented. Documented or undocumented. Great. So Medi-Cal is a little bit so understanding Medi-Cal is a little bit complex. Medi-Cal is both state and federally funded. So depending on what Medi-Cal advantage you're taking, the analysis will differ. So if you're taking federally funded Medi-Cal, a portion subset of Medi-Cal that's federally funded, then before the new public charge rule comes into place, we encourage you to cap it off to make sure that after the new public charge rule is in place, you're no longer taking advantage of that. So if that makes sense. But if you want to reach out to us with your specific facts and kind of let us know what exactly you're doing, where you're at, we can give you a better answer. So let us know. Okay, so another question that we got was, if I am a US citizen and my parents are here in the US, can I petition for the permanent residence? So, can I petition them for permanent residence? Okay, do either of you guys want to answer this based on our understanding of the dance?
Do you want
All right, so I mean, there's a lot of ways to petition for your parents if you are a U.S. citizen. You know, that's one of the things that you're able to do that. If you're a U.S. citizen, petition for your parents. But keep in mind that there are certain implications, if, you know, on different facts. You know, it's all based upon the facts of when you entered, the method of entry, if it was, you know, an illegal way or a legal way. Just keep that in mind. If they have lawful presence here in the United States, if they have, you know, some sort of status right now. So, I mean, I can't really tell you go ahead and petition for your parents right now, but we would just like to inform you to speak with an attorney to discuss the specific facts. And if you would like, you could do the intake service that we offer here at Immigrants Rising to better help you based upon the facts in your case. But one of the ways that we see, there's 2 ways. There's adjustment of status and then consular processing. Adjustment of status when the person has had a legal entry in their record. So let's say your parents had a legal entry, came here to the United States, they maybe overstayed the visa that they came with, but they have that on the record. So that means that they don't have to do consular processing. So what they'll be able to do, you'll be able to file that application to help to adjust their status. And then, but if they don't have that, then you'll have to do consular processing. And you might want to speak more on that.
Consular process.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what William was saying.
For the interest of time, sorry. So let me just, so the quick answer to your question is yes, if you're a US citizen and you want to petition your parents for LPR, you can. But as William and Janet just fleshed out, it's a lot more complicated of a process. So the next step that we really encourage you to do is take ILLIS, because ILLIS can take account of all your facts and then we can give you a summarized information. Great. Okay, so the next question we have, where can I find more information on the housing vouchers? Information on the housing vouchers? What do you think they meant by that? Okay, so if you're looking for general information on housing vouchers, I think the HUD has a good source of information. So if you look up HUD on Google, but if you're talking about like what kind of housing vouchers are considered under public charge, the housing vouchers that we have under public charge is housing assistance such as Section 8 housing vouchers. And for more information as to what it is, you can look up CLASP, so that's CLASP, and I think our IT individual will help us with this by dropping in the link. CLASP has a quick analysis guide of the public charge rule that dropped out. So we'll include it in the chat box, or if we can't find it immediately, then we'll make sure to follow up. When we make the slides available, we'll include that in the slides as well. Nope. Okay, so the next question is for students that don't have DACA, need to travel within the state and knowing that certain locations have checkpoints, what can they prepare for? Okay. So I think that's a complicated question, but I'm gonna speak on it from a practical standpoint. So let's say that travel is something that you can't avoid and you absolutely have to do it. My advice would be to, well, general advice out there would be to make sure that you're aware of the checkpoints that are going on. And some of the ways that you can be aware of it, I believe UWD has a hotline where people call in about checkpoints, call in about raids, so that would be a resource that I would check. And also, I believe there are informal Facebook groups that share information like this, or you can also Google to see, you know, like, for example, if I'm just traveling down to San Diego, maybe I'll do a quick Google search of San Diego checkpoints, immigration, to see what exactly is happening. Aside from that, I think just general practice to, you know, drive safe and be aware of what places are usually being targeted for checkpoints and trying to avoid that route if possible. But yeah. All right, is that all the questions that we have for now? Great. Okay, then before we cap it off, oh, we're a minute above, but thank you guys so much once again for joining us, and thank you, William, and thank you, Janet. And also I want to take a second and say thank you to Jesus. He's also in the legal services team, but he's been great with tech support. And in terms of emails, we're going to be sharing in the chat box what our contact emails are. So if you guys have individualized questions, want to follow up with anything we said in the presentation, please reach out and send us an email. We'd be more than happy to help you. All right.
All right.
With that, I think we'll say goodbye for now.
Bye,
Until
everyone.
next time.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you
Happy
again.
Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday.
Oh my,